Hello everybody, this is Lima Crafton, aka Zor Valachan, Less Than Guru. I'm doing another discussion video. This one I want to break apart into a few parts so it isn't too long. If you've seen my other videos, especially the tutorials and the playthroughs, you will know that I am not adverse to making huge long videos, but in discussion videos I wanted to kind of break it apart. In this specific one, I want to kind of give you my viewpoints on games, so that when I do eventually start reviewing games that I've played and game mastered, you will understand where my reasoning comes from. Kind of my ideas, why I might say certain things are pros and you might think they're cons, why I might say certain things are cons and you think they're pros. And doing a lot of, not a ton, but reading recently on forums and watching YouTube videos and stuff, I've kind of figured out, at least for me, a lot of things of my viewpoints kind of hinge on an old school versus new school mentality. And I know there's a lot of people that are very, very firmly on one camp or the other. They absolutely hate the other camp. They'll sit there and they'll argue at each other instead of, debating, and yell over each other and not quite listen to what the other side has to say. Now, that's not to say either side is doing it wrong, or that you should just be open and love everything. But you do, I won't say, I'm not going to try to say you must. It is good, in my opinion, to look at somebody else's viewpoints, because there has been times where I completely never understood something, and then people would try to tell me what it was, and I would listen, but I still didn't understand it. And then weeks, decades later, somebody will then tell me why it applies to them, and then I could go, oh, okay, now that makes sense. Never would have entered my head that this could happen because of this reason. Now it makes sense. I still might disagree with it in my own game, with my own group, but if you were in my game and you didn't like this, or if you were in my game and you liked this, I now could understand it. So I do hope that even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, you might like the video, because there has been times when I've watched videos and I disagreed with somebody's point entirely, but it got me thinking about it, and it made me, kind of like go, huh, okay, yeah, this is something. Don't agree with what they're saying there, but it might actually, there might be a reason. It got me thinking about things. So that's always a benefit. When you get more ideas, you can understand why you like your own ideas better, or you might switch. And over the course of my gaming lifetime, I have had opinions that have changed, and maybe they went back, or maybe they were like, I was firmly in old school, then I was firmly in new school, and now I'm like, it depends. And that's kind of where I actually am now, and why I want to make this series of videos. I think that it kind of breaks up into a few parts, but I want to say that, like, I started old school, and then there was a point where I did completely subscribe to the idea of new school is better for all of these reasons. And now I'm looking at old school again going, I'm not sure that it was always a bad thing, and I'll hopefully be able to answer all those questions. So kind of, in my opinion, some main points between the two are combat. How is combat handled? Old school mentality, combat as battle. New school mentality, combat as sport. And you might have seen some really good, there's some really good both new schoolers and old schoolers who talk about this on YouTube. So I am in no means the only person on YouTube or they're coming up with this idea. It's something that me watching videos talking about, combat as sport versus combat as battle, that got me kind of thinking. And it's one of those things, like I said in my previous video, that sometimes you just understand it, but you don't have words for it. You might not have a phrase for it. And then once you have it, everything kind of clicks into place. And that's one of those things. I always knew combat as battle old school. You didn't know what you were getting in. There was no concept of a fair fight. A game master might want a fair and challenging fight, but sometimes boom, TPK, or you just slaughter the threats without breaking a sweat. And new school combat as sport, I found amusing because I am not a sport person at all. Sorry, sports fans. I have played, like just for fun, football, basketball, baseball, things like that. But I can never just sit and watch it. It just has no interest to me. If you do, then great. But combat as sport, I never would have thought of that as a thing, but it makes sense. Once you think about it, where you have your party, say 4th level or alpha clearance, etc., depending on your game system, and your threats are challenging. Your party, if they play smart, will defeat it, but it shouldn't be a complete floor mopping. And then once you have so many of those, you have spent X many resources. You should then do this to refresh, get to the end of the act, have a long rest, etc., refresh your resources, go on, do this X many times, and you gain your level, you get your XP, get your whatever the character advancement currency is. So there is that different mentality of combat. So that's the first one. The second one is that currency, and I'll say experience points just because that's the most widely used term for that advancement. You have an old school mentality, like really old school mentality of gold pieces as treasure, or gold pieces and treasure as experience. So you gain 50 gold pieces. You got it out of that dungeon. You didn't kill anything. You snuck in. You got it. You pulled it out. Now you got 50 experience, 1,000, 10,000, whatever. Then you have the new school, which even gets into like milestone leveling, where just you reach a goal that the game master has determined as a goal. There's no XP assigned. Everybody gain a level. Everybody, I guess in Torg you'd say everybody can gain a perk or X this, X that. It is kind of harder with the currency systems where you can break it apart and it's not just level jumps. But either way, you have these two systems. And watching some OSR, old school Renaissance videos, and reading some OSR type things online, and then listening also to new school videos, some people who are doing D&D 5th, their channels focus on, say, D&D 5th edition, talking about milestone leveling. And what really kind of made me look at these two aspects and think about them is the old school. A lot of people in the old school see this gold as XP in the same way that the new schoolers see milestone leveling, and that is preventing murder hobos. The hobo aspect, you don't have a home, you just travel from place to place and you kill things, and because you killed them and they have XP value, you get XP, you level up, you gain your currency, and you advance your character. Old school sees the gold pieces, not the killing, but getting these gold pieces, usually from dungeons and that. But it is a no, not stealing from merchants and stuff. That gold is in circulation, it's being useful. It's getting the gold that's in the dragon hoard because it's not doing anything. It's that type of, but you don't have to kill the dragon to do that. You get the gold, and that's how you get the XP, prevent murder hobos. You got the new schoolers saying, when you focus on milestone leveling, goal accomplishments, things like that to get up your levels, then everything doesn't become a kill it for XP. Interesting. Both completely or what you would think completely diametrically opposed schools of thought are both saying their way gets rid of murder hobos. So in one video, I want to talk about these two systems, and then my personal view on do they or do they not get rid of murder hobos. And then campaign style. Campaign style, I think there's a big difference between old school campaign or adventure style and new school adventure style. And I think a lot of the old school adventure styles were good for a certain, if it's kind of like you and your group want to do this type of thing, you might want to go old school. If this is your thing, you want to go new school. So I want to kind of talk about that too. And then there's all the things that people used to, as well as murder hobos, that people used to disparage, hack and slash type thing, or the role playing versus role playing. The ROLE, I'm playing a role of a character versus the role of the dice. New school, old school mentalities on that. So there's a lot of these that I want to think about. I have tried to encompass these into videos, but they were way, way too long. And then once I did them, I kind of looked back and was like, oh man, I left out all of this stuff. So it was just going to be something weird. So I was like, if I'm going to best probably in this type of thing, break it up into chunks, and then as I do it, if I do forget something, maybe I'll have, and if I have enough of them, maybe I'll have an end conclusion wrap up video. But again, this whole thing is to get people kind of thinking about different aspects of role playing. Everybody kind of has their own history, their own background, their own thoughts and stuff. And I don't want to seem like I'm picking on any side, because again, I've played both and I've enjoyed both. But when I see a lot of, the new schooler, hey, okay, boomer, you just don't understand that role playing has evolved so much, as if evolution's always a good thing. Some creatures evolve so much into some niche category that they end up extinct, but they're like, it's progressed in anything old school. Man, that was 30 years ago. You're playing with sticks and stones and stuff. And we have Roll20 now and Fantasy Grounds and virtual tabletops and stuff like that. I don't even, our phones can roll our dice. But no, I'm talking about systems, not accessories. But, that mentality of, that's in the past, that's old, and then you got the old schoolers, who most are old school, old grognards. But there are some younger people who like the old school mentality, way of gaming, but you have that side going, in my day, we carried around 10-foot poles and we poked and prodded everything from a nice, safe distance because we had no perception skill. We couldn't just roll a die. We had to tell the game master what we were doing, and he then told us what the result was. So you have those different mentalities. So that might be something that I get on, are the player aspect of it, the player solving the problems versus the character solving the problems. Because again, I see a lot of old school stuff where even though you had your stats and your character might be smart and you might be dumb, or vice versa, or you might be charismatic and your character, and there were no, at least in old D&D and systems based off of that, when you rolled dice, there were no dump stats because it was what you rolled. There was no point by, I'm going to boost up everything, so I got to throw, I got to make this one low so everything else can be high. No, you just rolled your charisma, and if you rolled high, you rolled high. You rolled low, you rolled low, and you couldn't use it as a dump stat because you dumped, nothing was in it to dump. So again, you have these different mentalities do me as a person, do I like myself being challenged? Do I like the game master putting out a puzzle for me to solve, Lehman, or do I like the aspect of the I'm having a bad day and Lehman doesn't want to think, but Zor Valachan has, a X intelligence. Can't I roll a knowledge skill or under my intelligence and give at least me a hint or solve it because he's smarter today than I am? You don't role play out strength. I don't have to lift up a table to pretend, what my barbarian's doing. Sometimes I really like solving the problems. Sometimes I really just want to roll and get on with it. So again, I'm not saying one's bad, one's good. I'm just saying there's different points of view. And what you might like today, you might not like tomorrow. You may not. But it's always good, in my opinion, to not focus so much on this style is so good and so great that anything that style is worthless. Either, okay, boomer, just die already, and no, I've been harsh, but just let your thoughts die, and we're new school. Or these kids these days don't understand, they're focused on their computer thing gamies, and their attention spans 10 seconds. It all comes, in my view, it all comes up to the game master, the players, the group, and what type of experience they want to present. So having said that, I will try to focus this video on combat versus sport, new school. I usually want to do this. Combat is battle. I like my left for some reason being my old school. Might change, but combat is battle, old school. Combat as sport, new school. Basically, old school had all of those. You could have the character die. The battle, the combat as battle means the game master doesn't necessarily have to make fair, challenging fights like the new school philosophy. A game master could put an ancient dragon right there and tell the first level characters, hey, there's a dragon out there. New school, while yes, statistics wise, you could have a dragon that could slaughter a bunch of brand new characters, the game master probably would make it a hatchling dragon if he's going to mention it. Because if he mentions it, it gets in the player's mind of, hey, there's a dragon, that's a bad thing, we were hired to kill it. Since the game master said we had an NPC hire us to kill it, then we should be able to kill it. Have a chance at least. So the combat is fair. And if X many resources are spent and the things work out and the dice just don't go one way or the other, we have a decent chance of slaying that dragon. The old school mentality is the game master might mention there's a dragon out there. And if your brand new characters went out and fought that dragon, they would probably die. And you might think, well, that sucks. And yeah, sometimes it sucked to go through a lot of characters, especially in old school style where you rolled hit points or your systems didn't have a lot of that. You get the minimum of your variation of whatever constitution is, and a maximum die roll, hit die roll, etc. You might start off with a number of hit points or equivalents to where a goblin with a dagger could just and you're dead. So how can that be fun? How can that old school of I just die be fun? Well, you don't just die. It's when you hear there's a dragon out in the world, you don't get your 3 to 4 buddies and, run into the dragon's lair. You talk to people in the town. You figure out what type of dragon is it. If it's D&D, is it a chromatic versus metallic? What type is it? A white dragon is going to be a kind of a different power level as a red dragon. Things like that. You might learn how long it's been in the region, which might give you an idea of how advanced, how old it is. And it doesn't always have to be D&D, but you can figure out maybe if it's something else, what weaknesses it might have. But in that old school combat as battle, you wanted to stack the odds in your favor, because if you just ran in with no forethought, you very easily could run into a situation that you just died. And it wasn't necessarily the game master just going, I put him up for down. I kill my players. I kill my players. Yes. And even now, I've seen, there are game masters out there that take that game master versus player mentality. It was a little more talked about old school, because there was that philosophy in old school of the game master is god of his world, and you displeased him and he could pick up 16d6 and thunderbolt come down and kill you. I say bad game master. You take a game master you can trust, a group that works with that game master. Old school can work really well, because it's not that the game master didn't tell you that dragon could completely kick your butt. It's you did not do your research on that dragon. You have a mage in your party. He has access to a wizard's guild. He can go to that guild, and there's a library, and he can look up information. He could figure out weaknesses, or what, the geography, what ways maybe to crawl under, what layer, etc. He could just find, information, clues, hints, and things like that. But he, as a player, needed to tell you, as a game master, I'm doing this. The game master, you have all types of things. You could have, fighters part of some, like, or paladins, some part of some organization, fighter organization, guild, thieves guild, a church if you're a cleric or priest, or type of clergy. But it's one of those where, no, you just needed to, you as a player needed to tell me as a game master that you're doing this, so that I know, and then I can relay that information to you. So there is a little bit more of that. Combat as sport leans to the, okay, Bob, roll your arcane knowledge, roll your wilderness knowledge, or roll this, and if you succeed, then I'll give you hints, or tell you what it is. So again, it's that player figuring it out versus character figuring it out really goes along with that. But the combat as battle is the Sun Tzu art of war. You really have to know yourself, and you have to know your enemy before you even attempt to do something with any chance of success, unless you just walk, unless you've gained some levels and you walk into a place that, just has 0 level kobolds, or, something like that. Again, then if the game master is playing them how they might have hooked up traps and things, then it could still be a TPK. So it's one of those where you want to look at it as the players figuring out everything, stacking odds in their favor. Some people really like that. They really like being able to survive. A lot of my old school games, when I was a lot younger, living with my mom and dad, and, they didn't quite understand role playing. They watched a few times, and I would come back from a game, and they would say, "Oh, did you win?" Well, we all kind of know role playing, there's no winning, but back then it was kind of like, did I survive? Did I live? Did my character live? I won. I won for the night. Yes, Mom. Yes, Dad. I won tonight, because next time I will play with that same character. Or the Well, the group won, but I didn't because I died, or things like that. So survival sometimes was that, and again, if you have that mentality, you don't like character death, you might be thinking new school because you get that padding of rule mechanic, whether they're the first choice in a game or an alternate that a lot of game masters use. Even old school, I played under a lot of game masters who, even though the rules were like, you roll your 3d6, you roll them in order, and that's what you do, and you like it. But there were game masters who were roll 46, keep the lowest or keep the highest three, or roll 3d6 and then you put them in what order you want to, and then wow, you had like a Monty Hall game master. If you got one that was like roll 5d6, keep the highest three, put them in all order, like roll 96d6 and keep the top 18 and blah blah, stuff like that. Mixing, this six and this six and this six, and just roll a huge bunch of dice. So there's lots of ways that even old school people were doing it, but it was a lot of those people doing that, in my opinion, that then got that more into this is now a rule. Um, and it was, yes, for a reason, but it's one of those, if you would have looked at old school and you would have looked at it was more of a player figuring things out, not rushing into combat, even at higher levels, never rushing into combat. And when you got that that higher level, whether in your area it was 5th level or 10th level, 3rd level, whatever that high level was, if you as a player got comfortable and you thought, I'm the biggest, baddest, there's somebody bigger and badder out there, and if you slip, then you have a really good chance of your character dying. Sometimes it was a roll, a die roll, a boom, instant save versus etc. or die, whatever the thing was, just save or die. And sometimes, yes, that was bad, but your character was in a position that they had a save versus death. They maybe if they would approach it differently, it would have had a different. And I'm not saying that everything could have been sneaky done and not put yourself into combat, but in combat you do have unexpected things like that. So again, it's not necessarily something that I personally would want to do in every system. And in the campaign style video, I will explain that a little bit more. But it does have a place. And it's not just something that should, in my opinion, it's not just something that should be put in a box and stored on a shelf and never come out. Because I think there is a lot of worth in that combat as battle. Makes you think about things a little differently, and in certain campaign styles, it definitely, in my opinion, contributes to that feel of what that campaign style is. And again, combat as sport can be fine. I play a lot of Torg Eternity and Pathfinder recently, first edition, and both, especially adventure paths, and kind of doing a little bit of the campaign plot type stuff. But in those type of systems, combat as sport works a lot better because you want to see the same character, or at least the core group. You want to see a plot arc go from beginning to end, and that's easier when you have combat as sport. You have combat in battle, and everybody dies. Well, then the next group of adventurers might want to do something else, and you just bought six modules, booklets, and you got through part of the first one and never get to the other ones. Where the old school was the modules were dungeon type things, so you might go in, clear out a few rooms, go back, come back in, clear out, come back, go in, oops, something worse, we gotta leave, we gotta figure out what's going, that type of thing. So it was a lot kind of different mentality. And again, I play both and I've liked both. It's just, what is this thing? And game masters, do your session zero with your players, no matter if you've just starting with this group or if you've been with the group for 25 or more years, like I have with my main group. Because if you've been doing something and then you switch to the other side, the players might not be expecting it. Personal example, I play bi-weekly on Friday and on Sunday Torg, and then that's me game mastering. On the following week, I play in a Pathfinder game, and then the week after that, the Friday, Sunday Torg, and then the week after that, Sunday Pathfinder. So all the games that I am in are pretty much in the new school type thing. We've been doing this for this new school type style for 3 years, both Pathfinder and Torg Eternity. And right now, in my Torg Eternity group, we're getting to kind of a good stopping point to maybe even retire those characters. They've been through a lot, and the adventure that they're currently going through has a nice stopping point. At the end of that, not because I'm burnt out on Torg, but I have another group that I'm doing Torg in, and I like to do different games. I've been thinking that I might want to do a different game. And the more that I think about it, the more I would like to do an old school game. Because it's not necessarily that I'm not liking what I'm seeing in the new school stuff, it's just I want a little change. Pathfinder, for the last, it was 3 years where we played one big adventure path from first level to the end level. In Torg, we've been doing a lot of the mega adventures, that type of style. And I would just kind of like to do a open sandbox of where I, as a game master, would just make a setting, not necessarily the whole world, but an area, and populate it. And maybe over here there's a big dragon, and the players will know there's a big dragon there, but it will be up to them to figure out, stuff about the dragon. And like I was saying with the combat as battle. And that kind of got me watching some YouTube videos and reading some forums and stuff, and really having like a craving for that old school of where no fights aren't going to be a fair challenge, where there might be some mop wiping if the players are doing poor. The players might legitimately hire some people. They might have some hirelings that they bring along, like old school had. They might try to influence things politically and stuff like that, coming up with their own. Not me as a game master going, here's your arc, let me take you through it, but the players determining where they want to go. Me kind of having this set up. If they go here, this is what they might, this is what they'll encounter along the way, but they're the ones who decide where they want to go. Just things like that. I just think I want to have kind of that openness, and I'm not necessarily saying that new school will do that, but I do want that even the big bad fighter troll in the party could just get wiped. Could, if he just runs into battles, swinging his sword, he could be taken out in a hit or two if the dice roll, and see how the players. Now, again, since we have been doing all new school, I completely have told my players, this is the game I'm thinking about. It will be very old school. It will be deadly, combat. Doesn't mean that you're always going to lose, no, but you will need to stack the odds in your favor. If you just run into combat, you will die. You need to take that into consideration and stuff like that. So that's kind of my thoughts about the combat versus battle versus combat versus sport. I think they both have places in role playing. I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. I do think that in certain situations, one helps more than the other. And depending on the play style and what type of thing you're doing and who your game master is, who your group is, do you have a responsible game master who's not just gonna, and there's a difference between here's the dragon all statted up and your first level characters die against it, and here's the dragon statted up and your first level characters would have killed it because of some good dice roll and planning, but the game master doesn't want you to kill his pet dragon, so he makes it kill you. No, that's different. That's not old school. That's just a mean game master. So, to conclude with this video, old school, new school is kind of my topic, so you can kind of get my idea of when I start reviewing things, why I might say things are pros, things are cons. Again, I've changed my mind a few times. I always played old school. And then when new school books came out and I read about that, I'm like, oh, wow, I have a good time as a game master making challenging things that I don't have to worry about TPK the party just by some bad dice rolling. Combats go simple, they're easy, they're not complicated, etc. As a player, I know that if I play smart, because I have seen in new school people charge into battle and die because that's what they do. Oh, I just charge into battle, and my character, would do other, be strategic and cover and movement and stuff. Maybe I didn't attack every round, but I was trying to give myself an advantage. But I lasted the entire adventure path. I was one of two characters who went from level 1 to the end of the level. But so I understand new school philosophy and that it's not just running into battle. But there is a point when I was playing in new school recently where the first was the old adventure path when we were really high level and everything was a cakewalk, and the very, very, we say BBEG, big bad end guy, but the BBEG who was the biggest baddest BBEG because it was from the ever since we were 1, it was the level 1, it was the big bad above everything, and the combat was 2 rounds. And my character spent 2 rounds trying to get into position, and other characters might have cast like a buff spell, and the person who rolled highest on initiative on our side basically went, and then the rest of us were doing prep things, went and killed it. And it was just like, oh, so our big bad end guy was watch so-and-so kill the big bad end guy. Even though it was part of our group, it almost felt like one of those, adventures or games where the NPC comes down and takes care of everything and the party just stands back and watches. And when that happened, and then we started a new game, and my groups are usually 7 to 8 players, and a game master, so 8 to 9 actual people. But the game master, who's the same game master who done the previous adventure path, and yes, this is a Pathfinder game, and to be honest, I do not like Pathfinder as a system. When I do a review on Pathfinder, I'll tell you why. but I like the game master, I like my group, and I really like the adventure paths. I really like the story, and um, I must have put it back there, but I have a little spiral notebook that during the game I will write down, kind of a little journal for myself, and keep things in it because I really like the path. And then sometimes when people don't know things, I can flip through and go, oh yeah, this person was named that. I really, really, really enjoy the path. So I think Pathfinder, Paizo really makes some good paths. I just don't like the system. And we were playing a new path, and again, I came really close to not playing. The game master explained the kind of the general idea, had our session 0, even though it was kind of just like now and then before the game while we were ending, going through the last few sessions of the old game. But any type of session 0, it doesn't have to be one session. It can just be the game master going, hey this, a couple days later, hey this. But he was kind of getting everybody on board on how this was going to be different. We started playing this, and with eight players and a game master, we got into a situation that was really close. It came really close to a TPK. It was wonderful. It was amazing. We had been just plowing through things, and okay, we spend all our resources. Is more the casters spent their resources, or the upfront melee people. One of them would get hurt, and we'd go back and rest up and come forward, and we got ambushed, and it was one of the few times where I kind of broke my character's law. Sometimes I have laws for characters. In Call of Cthulhu, my character Junior, his law is he does not use guns. He carries a billy club. If he can't hit a thing with a billy club and it stays down, he does not fight it. He goes away. He sees all the people who have guns and shoot the thing in Call of Cthulhu end up dying because they see the gun, they think that they're big and bad, and they shoot it. So usually my characters have some rules, and it's not necessarily Lehman's rules, it's the character's rules. So in that game, my character is a hand-to-hand fighter, not like sword, but like claw fighter. And it's basically, since I have to use claws, it seems a little more personal type thing. I don't wear armor, so I don't usually just run into battle first thing. I usually wait for them to come and allow my ranged people to hit it, or if one of my companions is up there and engaged, then I will go forward and assist them. I broke my rule. There was an enemy up ahead in the hallway, and I ran there to attack because I didn't want it coming to my friends. And after I passed and more people came into the hallway, the monsters ambushed the rest of the party, and I was kind of split off from them. And things happened, and it came really, 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 really close to a TPK. I mean, there was a couple of seconds there where I was like, one bad hit, and I'm dead. I'm going to go from full hit points to no hit points because I was paralyzed and the coup de grace rule, etc. But some situations made it so that it didn't fall into line, and then I came out of the paralysis, and we were able to shift that battle. And in the first time, and since we were first level in the beginning game, actually, might have been through the whole thing, really, really felt it could be a TPK. And instead of being upset about it, I actually was enjoying it. I enjoyed the tension. I enjoyed the way that when the stakes were that high, the way we were coming up with ideas to help each other out of this situation when half the party is paralyzed and the other half are, the fighters are paralyzed, they're taken out, and the things are coming from, the mages and support characters. How people work together to 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 overcome that. It felt really, really good. And again, this was done in a new school style. It was a new, Pathfinder new school. Is what I put in firmly into the new school mentality. But every battle is not like that. It was the first time in 3 years we had a battle like that, and it felt really, really good. And I started thinking about it and was like, wow. And the game master even said, he goes, look, you guys are going on an adventure that I'm not changing. It's built for 4 to 5, a group 4 to 5. You have 8. You have like double the amount of players. I am not holding back. My monsters are going to be smart. If you're paralyzed on the ground and they can coup de grace you, they're coup de grace you. They're not just going to step over you so that you can pop back up. Things like that. And that is an old school, I will say, in my belief, that is an old school mentality of the monsters are fighting not as sport. They're not giving you a fair chance. They're not making a challenging, but we're going to be defeated mentality. They're going, I am going to do all my tricks because you're going to do all your tricks. So that got me thinking about old school systems and which ones I might play, and I brought up some systems. And I told my players, I said, look, I want to go old school, and I want to go combat's going to be battle. It's not going to be sport. If you get into a wrong combat and you do dumb things, you're going to have a party wipe, or you as a character, your character is going to die. But I'm not really firmly, I want to do this system. So here's a few old school systems. And it was like, the Beckme Rules Encyclopedia. I was like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do first edition Palladium Fantasy? Personally, I don't like second edition so much. First edition is, like I mentioned, just like one sidestep from D&D, in my opinion. And do you want to do that? Do you want to do Warhammer first, or there's a Warhammer clone that I bought and I read and kind of liked, as Zweihander, and I was like, do you want to do like a Warhammer a clone? I brought up the Adventure Quest Jarn that I've mentioned before. That's a game that a lot of my players have liked. Definitely old school style. So I brought up, in choice, and I even at 47 I made my first survey monkey. Sent out an email, and so I didn't want people to be biased by, they really wanted to do this thing, but they thought other people would do this thing, and you know how biases can get, that players might be afraid to speak up. So do use technology if you need to. And this is a player group I've had for, like I said, the main people have been there 25 years. But I just wanted to be completely anonymous. I didn't even want to know what people were saying, and I'm like, I'll do my vote too as a game master. I'll just be one of the, nine votes. Give me your ranking 1 through 5, and almost everybody chose. I'll go ahead and say it. Almost everybody chose Palladium first edition fantasy. It was everybody's either first or second choice. So I didn't want to do, if there was a majority of 5s, I didn't want to do that. Or if a lot were 4s, I didn't do that. But if I had some that were, half the people did it as 1 and half the people did it at 5, maybe, then I would choose a 2 or a 3. But no, almost every 1 or 2 was Palladium first edition. So that's what I have done. So you might do something like that. So it's just one of those things. Again, you as a game master, you as a group, set what it is you're trying to accomplish. What I'm trying to accomplish is an open setting world, or open setting where I populate the world, and I have some little plots going on, And by plots, I don't mean adventure plots. I mean, this guy rules this area, and this is how he thinks, and this is what he's attempting to accomplish. This guy up here, he's a bandit leader. This is what he's trying to accomplish. And players, depending on where they choose to go, because I'm going to allow my players to choose where they're going to go. I'm giving them a reason why they're starting together. After they hear that, it's up to them. So it's kind of like one plot hook, and after that, they can either decide not to do it. If they do it, once they resolve that, which could take a couple of sessions, it could take years. Who knows? Like I said, basically, I don't have an adventure path. I don't have a point A to point Z and points in between. It's just open sandbox, and with the combat as battle was one of the driving forces. Again, after playing that Pathfinder session where we almost got the TPK, and instead of being afraid, and instead of being oh man, I don't imagine, I can't imagine what would happen if I would have lost one, if we would have did blah 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 blah. It was like, wow, that was really really fun. And I was talking with a couple of other people, and that to them seemed kind of a little intense. So I just want to go a little old school. Again, I'm not saying new school is bad. I love my Tour of Eternity. I'm playing it on Fridays every other week. A couple months ago, I started a second group. So it's just, what do I want to do at this time with this group of people to scratch that itch I have. So I want to thank you for watching this video. I guess now is when I say that thing where everybody says that if you like the video, you can click the little like. If you dislike it, you can click the little thumbs down, and I'll be sad. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. I think I'm up to 10 subscribers now, so you got to start somewhere. And I hope to have content out. Hopefully you enjoyed what you listened to, mostly because I don't have little flashy things coming down. I don't have little boxes within the box and stuff, but it's just me trying to start a discussion, kind of give you different viewpoints and things, and again, so that when I do my reviews of systems, you can say, think to yourself, oh, that's why Lehman is talking about this like he likes it, even though I'm seeing it as I don't like it, or vice versa, and that. So thank you very much, and hope to see you again.